If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to Downfall Network for more cool content.
What's up, everybody? Thralls of Metal here. I am Jammin Jon.
Necrotic Nick.
Shredlord.
And we are bringing you yet another album ranking from the almighty Morbid Angel. Now, Morbid Angel, if you don't know,
Shame on you.
You should know.
I don't know how you don't know.
Shame.
Part of the original Tampa death metal scene. Other bands like Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, Death.
Deicide.
Tons of other ones.
Tons of other ones. Morbid Angel, as you know, are the pioneers of extreme death metal. Formed in 1983 from Tampa, Florida. Started by Trey Azergoth, guitarist, and Mike Browning as the drummer originally.
And vocalist.
Morbid Angel did some demos and such before they started. Released an album called Abominations of Desolation, which never really turned out to be Morbid Angel, even though it technically was.
It was pretty much a collection of demos. I think they released it later through Earache. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty much like the early works they had, stuff that would later show up on their first album. But Mike Browning obviously didn't stick around. And he actually ended up with Nocturnus, another Florida band, and played on the album The Key, which is some really cool sci-fi oriented death metal from the 90s.
And they didn't release Abominations of Desolation until 3 years later because they thought it sucked. So,
Well, that's a tough problem to get over.
yeah. Their first album, Altars of Madness, released in 1989 on Earache Records. Now, this was the exit Mike Browning and enter Pete Sandoval on drums, and then David Vincent on bass and vocals.
Let's just kick this thing right off the bat. This is my #1 Morbid Angel album. This is a legendary fucking death metal album. For the time, the production was incredible. Great musicianship. Songs like Visions from the Dark Side, Immortal Rites, Maze of Torment, and it's David Vincent pre-cowboy hat.
Blonde hair, too. This is my #2. In terms of debut albums for any band, this is exceptional. Songwriting is incredible. I like the fact there's a little bit of a thrashy energy.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that's the only time it really shows up, is that sort of thrash metal side of them. Amazing songwriting. And these guys were super young, but man, they just came out swinging. Pete Sandoval stands out as probably one of the fastest drummers ever, and right away he pretty much established himself, like just playing faster than Death and Obituary and even Cannibal Corpse. Like, these were very precise beats. Chapel of Ghouls is probably my favorite track on here, but Maze of Torment, Immortal Rites, the opener, I love that little backwards play in the beginning and then right into that big groovy hook. Amazing album.
All right, so here's the thing. First of all, ranking this discography, and I think these two chuckleheads can attest to the fact, ranking this discography was incredibly difficult. And by incredibly difficult, since the day we decided that we were going to do the review for this, or the ranking for this, my numbers have switched back and forth nonstop as to what was the greatest, and we all know what the worst was. We'll get there. Even in the car ride over here, I had a rough time ranking these albums. This is my #6. And God,
Damn.
No bueno.
Look.
No bueno.
Look.
No bueno. No bueno.
I understand, and I...
Do you?
You think you know someone, right?
Maybe.
I mean, there are just things that beat it out. I had no fucking choice. I've been back and forth.
5 other things beat out Altars of Madness.
5 other things beat out Altars of Madness. But that's not to say it's not a kick-ass album, especially for a debut album. That album ripped. I mean, what more can I say that these guys haven't said other than, this was the record that they kind of cut their teeth with for Morbid Angel, and it still had some thrashy elements from their, original days. You could hear their definite influences at the time, Death and Bolt Thrower. And again, Maze of Torment is an awesome song, and Chapel of Ghouls is killer. And I also like Blasphemy, too. So...
Possessed. There's a lot of Possessed. Like,
yeah,
they
dude,
took
for real.
that side of thrash/death.
So again, I'm sorry that this is lower on the list, but they have too many kick-ass albums. What do you want?
Higher ranking.
Higher ranking for sure. Yep. What a fucking butthole. All right. Next in line in this wonderful discography that was incredibly hard to rank We have Blessed Are the Sick, came out in 1991, also on Earache Records. This was more, I think, of sludgy, when they started incorporating sludgy death metal.
Atmosphere.
Yep, Atmosphere. This was my number 5. I just like the fact that it was more of a sludgy record. This is more when I think they started really diving away from that thrash sound. Really, this was just straightforward death metal at this point.
There were still a lot of like thrashier, high-speed moments. There's a weird, interesting contrast between like the longer, more sludgy songs and then those fast breaks like Brainstorm on there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting album. I like it. It's my number 4. I have some issues with the production. I think Dave is really forward in the mix vocally.
He's
Yeah.
way too loud.
And the drums. Like,
He's
I think that
way
is
too loud.
an aggressive
The guitars
snare.
are buried.
Yeah.
Buried.
At the same time, it was 1991, and you didn't have a lot of choices for...
Honestly, I think Ultras was mixed better. A little bit.
I agree.
It's a little thin.
But I think it was interesting they actually had like a more sinister tone to this. Like Dave
Yes.
Vincent's vocals dropped down a bit. There was less of a thrashy bark, and he sounded like legit sinister. And the fact that you could understand everything he said.
Well, and the vocals were so...
Flutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The flutes. The ambience kind of... Yeah.
The flutes.
Okay.
And the vocal content at this point in the game was very evil
Yes.
and dark, which is why I think this fit more overall. Like the song "Fall from Grace,"
Oh, killer.
nasty,
Day of Suffering.
nasty.
This album was my number 6. I felt like there were times in this album that were really good, and then other times that it was kind of average. Examples of such: the first half of "Fall from Grace" is kind of but then it picks up my interest in the second half. Killer opening to "Day of Suffering." Well, actually, the whole track is kind of badass. But
Yeah.
"Unholy Blasphemy."
Love
Dude,
Love it.
That's a barn burner. That's a
Crazy
fucking
about it.
great
I wasn't
song.
crazy about it. Abomination definitely brings me back in though. Ancient Ones.
Yep.
Yeah. Stuff like that. Rebel Land has some really cool double picking sections with the guitar and stuff. Number 6, I stand by it. There's other things that I think are better.
It was definitely like them trying to push their sound a bit, and I like the fact that they tried something different. They could have easily just replicated the whole Ultras formula, but they really wanted to push themselves creatively, and I think they crafted a good album, different in terms of the tone, but still a really solid album to listen to. I strongly recommend it.
Alrighty, moving right along, we have Covenant, released in 1993. Now this is where they backed off of Earache and signed with Giant Records.
The first extreme metal band to sign to a major label.
Yeah.
Way to go, guys.
Richard Brunel, at this point, is exited forcefully from the band, leaving them as a legendary 3-piece now. Although Eric Rutan did wander into the band after the release and at least tour with them on it. This album is mine number 1.
Same.
When somebody asks me, hey, what's Morbid Angel, because it still happens, Covenant is one of the first albums I will send them to, most notably with the song God of Emptiness and or Rapture, because those are just killer. This whole album, start to finish, is
Yes.
fucking awesome.
Yes. This was honestly my first exposure to Morbid Angel. I brought it up in my 20 albums I got into in my teens.
As did I.
A buddy of mine played God of Emptiness in the car, and we may have imbibed a little bit.
Everybody's seen the video.
Yeah.
God of
We
Emptiness.
may
Yeah.
have indulged in some
I think-
substance abuse.
I think we
We
all.
abuse it.
I think we
embraced
all
it.
separately brought up the story about how we all saw God of Emptiness on MTV and was like, "Holy shit!"
And
Like,
it was,
this is fucking heavy, man.
and honestly, it wasn't a moment like it wasn't his growls when he did his like chanted deep cleans, like "Let the children come to me." It's like, okay,
yeah, like,
Dude,
that's
yeah.
already.
Yeah.
That's scary
We,
shit.
okay.
But the fact that they signed to a major label, and this was like a subsidiary of like Warner Brothers or Interscope, and generally when you think, oh yeah, they signed to a major label, they're gonna cash in, blah blah blah. They wrote one of the most aggressive albums they could. This album is a non-stop, just freight train rolling over you.
And it starts that way, right, with Rapture.
Rapture is ripper right out of the gate.
There's no
Yeah,
no
keyboard
pretense.
intro. There's
Nothing.
no nothing. Just right into the fucking Rapture.
World of Shit.
Yep. Lion's Den.
Lion's Den is one of my favorite Morbid Angel songs.
Angel of Disease.
Angel of Disease is amazing.
Sworn to the Black. I mean, every track on here absolutely rips. And Again, very different from the last album. This was just packed full of aggression. I like the production on it too.
The big lead in Vengeance Is Mine, that's another highlight. This is my number 2, by the way. I loved how tight the guitars and the blast beats were synced. That was a big yes to me, man. Like,
Pete Sandoval hit third gear.
So right, so this is the album too. I think where Pete Sandoval really came alive.
The rhythm section was so disgusting on this album.
Yeah, dude.
The pocket was just insane.
He's a machine. He's a machine.
So yeah, Covenant. Moving right along to, again, one of my more favorite albums, Domination, released in 1995. They were still on Giant Records. Giant had them contracted in for up to 5 records. However, this would be their last album on Giant Records. The band now becomes a 4-piece as Eric Rutan fully joins.
We like Eric Rutan.
Yeah, which was a good thing.
Yeah, he had recently folded his project, Ripping Corpse. A lot of issues with that in terms of that's release. But he was a young, budding death metal guitarist in Florida.
Eric was somebody who was able to come in and match the same talent and skill as Trey.
Yep.
Which made a big difference and created a couple of really good albums.
So this is my number 3. What do you want? Again,
Don't apologize.
This is.
Don't apologize.
I'm not apologizing at all.
Album is awesome.
I'm not apologizing at all. This album is a great album. This album, again, is Where the Slime Live, I think, is one of my favorite Morbid Angel songs. The riffs on that song, they're just amazing. Again, this is a record that I would choose to, again, if someone says I've never heard Morbid Angel, it's either going to be God of Emptiness off of Covenant or Where the Slime Live off of Domination. This record kicks nuts.
There are songs on here that kick nuts. This is my number 6. I think there are good songs in here, but it's not a good album. And it really falls off after This Means War. Hail Caesar is, well, 3/4 of a song. 1/4 of it is an intro that is long and pointless.
Caesar's Palace.
Caesar's Palace, but it's awful.
Caesar's Palace.
But, well, no one's gambling there.
I love that song. Shut your whore mouth. I love that song.
Hate Work is
Hate
absolute
Work's
garbage.
Poop.
And there's a lot of interludes on
It was
here.
the Broadway musical song you didn't know you needed.
It was terrible. But, I mean, honestly, like, with Dreaming and Melting, they didn't really need those. And, again, like, it's just kind of a pacing thing. I know they were trying to work on some new ideas, and Dave Vincent didn't like the lyrical direction because they moved away from, like, Lovecraftian horror and Sumerian demons and such, and moved on to, like, kind of standard metal tropes, which, yeah, those were fine. But he really didn't care for it, and I just didn't like the direction overall. I love the production, and there are songs in here that I absolutely love. Dominate. Dawn of the Angry has one of my absolute favorite riffs in Morbid Angel's entire back catalog.
Eyes to see, ears to hear.
Nothing to fear.
Good. Yep.
But then you get, just some filler tracks in here, and it's a decent album. Again, it has great songs, but I don't think it's a great album.
There's filler tracks on a lot of Morbid Angel.
There weren't any on Covenant.
No, but
this
there
album,
weren't any on Altars.
Correct me if I'm wrong, okay, gentlemen? Correct me if I'm wrong. This album, especially amongst the Morbid Angel fan base, is you either love it or you hate it.
It's divisive. It's divisive.
There's no in between. Either you think it's great or you think it's shit. I think it is great. It is my number 4 Morbid Angel album. I love this thing, and Caesar's Palace kicks ass, so fuck you, buddy.
I gotta side with Nick on that. I also think that song sucks.
It's terrible.
I usually
Fuck you both.
I usually skip it when it comes on radio.
I am
in
no
the car.
longer your buddy, friend. I'm not your friend, guy. I'm not your guy, buddy.
Back to Earache Records, we have Formulas Fatal to the Flesh, released in 1998.
No more Dave.
And no more Dave. He leaves the band, and Steve Tucker takes over, which I think was a good takeover.
Steve Tucker's a solid frontman.
Yeah.
No Eric Rutan. He went on to pursue Hate Eternal, which, yes.
It's a great band.
Now, personally, I'm more of a Steve Tucker fan overall.
It depends on if you look at David Vincent as 2 different people, right?
Yeah.
It depends on. To me,
we're
going
gonna get to that.
We're definitely going to get to that.
There's 2 David Vincents, so.
But I think when Steve Tucker came into the band, I think that's when Morbid Angel got their heft.
I think.
Like
he definitely didn't hurt them in any way.
Yeah, Formulas Fatal to the Flesh is a banger.
It is the heaviest Morbid Angel album.
Yeah, it's my number 4. So
my number 3.
Laying down
my number 5.
Azargoth starts laying down more atmospheric solos too. This is where you kind of get into that whole.
You want to talk about filler? The last 3 tracks are instrumentals.
Yeah, they're just weird.
That
and
are
they were
way
tacked
too
on.
long.
They should have ended with Invocation of the Continuum, which is such
Agreed.
an amazing. Sorry, Invocation of the Continual One. My bad. That is an amazing song left over from their demos that they pretty much pieced together and re-recorded and made into a 9-minute epic. This album is aggressive, like aggressive as hell. Some of the most precise drumming I've ever heard.
Nothing
from
is
Sandoval.
not.
Nothing is not
Yep,
as
yep.
a
Nothing is
sick
not.
hook.
Yep.
Prayer of Hatred.
Mm-hmm.
Uma Lahari or Uma Lamahari.
I refuse to say that, so I just put in my notes Umu. It has an incredibly cool solo and a very cool ending.
Covenant
to
of
that
Death.
song.
Dude, Covenant of Death, I think, is where Pete Sandoval shines on this record, too. That song's
Dude, he
nasty.
shines on this
Woo!
entire album. He is a machine.
How about this, Trey? Hymn to a Gas Giant. This
Yes.
is the first time you hear Trey do like this clean kind of guitar stuff.
He is.
I
an
thought that was
interesting
really
guitar-
cool.
He's an interesting guitarist. Like he can do the squealy dive bombs, like all the Kerry King sort of
Really
stuff.
wrong.
that.
Really wrong.
But within there, you
That
hear like that
especially.
virtuoso playing. Like, wow, he's really good. Why does he always just do the squealy stuff? But it kind of works.
maybe
with,
he feels it's more appropriate.
It is. It is
I
appropriate.
mean, at this
with Morbid
point, too,
Angel.
you're, 5 records in, so you're going to progress, obviously?
Yeah.
Which-
This album is disgusting, though.
Yep.
I
I
absolutely
love
love
it.
it. This one, actually, I didn't like it initially because, like, no, Dave Vincent's the guy. And then I started listening. I was like, yeah, you know what? This is incredible.
Right, it's strange what happens when you don't listen to these records for a while, and then you have to go back through them and actually get really into them for the point of ranking them. And this moved up for me. I thought this record was nasty.
I saw in my notes that Invocational was a killer heavy metal quilt. I thought it had a lot of different types of sections in it.
Okay.
It was a
Yeah.
quilt.
Nick has a quilt.
A
I have a
quilt
quilt.
of goodness. It's a good thing.
It is good. Cool.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
It is. I mean, it really demonstrates a lot of their old style, but played with that newfound aggression, I think.
To me, it was interesting to see how they segue between these kind of vastly different parts.
Oh, fun little fact. F being the 6th letter in the alphabet, this has 3 F's in the title because 666 because Satan, yay. But yeah, this, in case anyone
Yay.
didn't know, Morbid Angel loves the alphabet.
Yes, they do. In fact, if you notice, they release all their albums in alphabetical order. It wasn't planned,
Yeah.
but it just kind of ended up that way. Next in line would be G. G for Gateways of Annihilation. Also a killer album. They're still on Earache Records, and Eric Rutan makes his return to the band.
Had some time off. man.
Great
Turn
move.
off.
Had some time off. It was a great move for him. And this was the first time that Steve Tucker contributed both vocals and songwriting now to the record. Gateways to Annihilation is my number 2. I absolutely love this album pretty much from start to finish. It's got better production on it. The song Ageless Still I Am, I love it.
It's still a live staple, especially now.
The whole record overall was more brutal and speedy. It kind of incorporated, in my opinion, Morbid Angel's best sounds into one record.
This was more like Blessed.
Yeah.
More in that vein, more the slower grinding compared to the last album for sure. Summoning Redemption is a badass track. Ageless brings back the speed factor for a quick second, right?
Yeah.
He Who Sleeps is
Yes.
a brutal
Yep.
fucking
Yep.
song.
Yes, it is.
This is my number 3,
Yep.
by the way. I absolutely adored this album. Love Opening of the Gates.
To the Victor the Spoils. Again, Sandoval's work on that song was nasty.
Rutan and Trey work so
Yeah.
well together,
Mhm.
man. When they get together, it's magical. I just wish that Eric could just fucking do both and
Yeah.
call it
Yeah.
a day, man.
Yeah.
You know? Like, 'cause
I mean-
when those cats get together, it's magic.
It was incredible. This is my number 5. It just kind of fell because there were other albums I liked more. I think Formulas is a stronger album, but not by much because Gateways is a very different album. I like the fact that it had this lumbering groove to it. Like everything was this big murky feel to it. And I thought the songwriting was excellent on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Production, I think the drums almost kind of sounded a little industrial-ish. Like it's a really tight snap to the snare, and then the clicky bass
In its
drum.
defense, though, this album was released during a really weird time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It was 2000, and metal was in a really weird
It
flux
was,
at
well,
this
yeah, you
moment.
had all the new metal crap that was
Yeah, so-
out,
Yep.
and then
I feel like at times you try to stay current with certain things, so maybe they experimented with some newer type drum sounds, but this album got released in a really weird time, and I think that's why it doesn't necessarily get the credit it deserves.
I think everything else about the production's really good, though. I love the
yeah,
guitar tone.
yeah, the
on
guitar
it.
tones are nasty
You
in
know,
here.
the vocals sound real crisp. And
I love my frogs. The album starts out with this really weird fucking track of like frogs humming. Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
This was the first time I ever saw Morbid Angel 2 in 2000.
Me too. With Pantera.
Yep, I was blown away. Like, they were absolutely incredible. But while it doesn't have the intensity of formulas that I like so much, this has something different, and once again, they like to craft different albums. They didn't like repeating themselves. And this is a banger, legit.
Like, I remember that show when Morbid Angel first came out on stage, and Steve Tucker came up to the microphone and he said, "Now, we're a little bit heavier, and I know why you're here, and Pantera is great, and this is a great tour, but we're what you call death metal."
I remember that.
And then just exploded, and it was nasty.
Yep.
Oof.
They had the album cover as the backdrop too, which this is another sick covered up by Dan Seagrave.
Now we start to get into rather an interesting era, I think, of Morbid Angel. This is where
The Dark Ages.
It falls off a little bit.
this is where things started not making as much sense, in my opinion. Heretic, released in 2003. Now, here's an interesting tidbit. It was initially released as just a single CD, but then a couple months later, a double CD came out, which is what I own.
Yep, same
Yeah.
here. It's an extra CD full of nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's an extra CD full of silence and weird stuff. But there's only, I think they said like, it was either 10,000 or 50,000, something like that, copies of this double disc floating around in existence.
So if you're looking for
So-
this album and an album that stuff that you don't want,
Silence and weird stuff. Yeah,
Go ahead and find that.
would be Heretic. This was their last album on Earache Records. They were back to a three-piece as Eric Rutan again exits in 2002 to go back.
He knew how lame this album was going to be.
and Hate Eternal was going to put out better stuff in this album for damn sure.
Yep. And it was the first album not recorded at Morrisound Studios, where they
Should've went to
recorded
Morrisound.
all their albums, but instead it was done at Diet of Worms Studio by Juan Gonzalez, which is evident in the mix of this album.
Do you like bass? Guess what? It's not on here. Steve Tucker is on here, vocals
Do you
only.
like bass? Too bad. It's not on here.
It's not on here at all.
Did
Do
you
you
want
like
it in the
the
bass
low
drum? Guess what? It's not in the bass drums. It's just this
It's
clicky
just,
racket.
right, this clicky weird stuff. Now I will give Pete Sandoval credit for the drum
drums,
check
yeah.
that's in this album.
fun.
That's one of my favorite.
There's so much
fucking
random
tracks.
shit.
But
on
see,
this
that's your
album.
favorite track on this full of...
On this
Yeah,
full,
no.
this full thing of my favorite tracks, the
it's-
fucking drum check.
It's number 8.
It's my number
Yep,
8
it's
too.
number 8. It's second to last.
Botched job. The songs
it sounded
sometimes are
uninspired.
good. Yeah, but they sound uninspired. They sound
Yes.
like, well, we're contractually obligated to put out an album. Is anyone feeling it? No. Cool.
Nope.
Let's hit the studio.
Except for the when Carl Sanders from Nile appears on
Yes.
God of Our Own Divinity for
Yep.
that solo. Thank you for
Thank
that
you.
because that was one of the saving graces. Of
Thank you,
this
Carl.
And Shrine by Grace, I believe, was the first single, and it's a decent song, but there's nothing on here that really jumps out.
If it's not in the first couple songs, and even then that's reaching.
A lot
I
of
don't-
filler tracks.
I'm not feeling it, gentlemen. That's a no from me, dog. It's a no from me, dog.
Yep, it's a no for me.
This album was pretty much a giant uninspired mess, and Steve Tucker ended up quitting the band after that. And over this time, they rekindled their relationship with Dave Vincent, who had been playing in Janitorturist with his wife for a while, playing more industrial rock / metal, and even did a live series of shows with Eric Rutan. I was like, oh, okay. And they were back to playing like stuff from
Yeah.
Covenant,
Yeah.
and Walters, and
Yeah.
Domination. And I kind of had hope, and then they finally said, hey, we're going to get back in the studio and record a new album. Now, unfortunately, Eric Rutan wasn't available, so they picked up Destructor. I can't remember his actual name, but that's the name he went by in Cyclone. That's the name he stuck with for Morbid Angel.
Yep.
And due to back surgery issues, Pete Sandoval was not able to be on this new album and thus exited the band, and they brought in Tim Young on drums. And
And
in 2011, and I should have known something was up by the photo shoots because Dave Vincent looked more like Nikki Sixx than Dave Vincent.
He grew a cowboy hat.
Dude.
And I think that cowboy hat came with it about 8 pounds of suck.
Might
a
be
leather
more than
vest.
8.
And leather pants that laced up along the side because, you know, yeah.
so we have Elude, Divinum, Insanus.
which is Latin for dumpster fire. Oh my god!
This is terrible.
Yeah, it's. I don't even want to talk about it. Like, look,
I'll talk about it.
And
I can talk about it.
I mean, I can talk about it too. This record was, first of all, it's dead last, and
Dead last, yeah.
and
Yeah,
even
yeah.
and even though there's 9 albums, if I had to actually rank it on a scale from 1 to infinity, it would push past infinity.
Yeah.
I'd rather listen to my grandparents farting.
It'd be more musical.
Like
Would
farting
you rather
into
listen to your grandparents fucking?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Because it sounds better than this goddamn pile of crap.
Can Grandpa
Misguided.
still make the Kraft macaroni and cheese sound?
No.
I didn't say I'd listen to them. I said if that was an option. I have no idea if
So Grandma's
Grandpa-
not drier than a bucket of sand?
if Grandpa's making the macaroni and cheese sound. Grandma's obviously moist at best.
Oh, well. I need a vomit. Cool.
Yeah, the lyrics are awful.
They're at a 4th grade
and-
literacy.
And
Hot Topic bullshit slogans and Mountain Dew commercial lines. Fucking Radicult. Are you kidding me?
yeah, dude, like
What a complete dumpster fire.
I'm pretty sure I tell this story on another review I did, but when I bought this album, I took it home, I had a couple friends over, and we popped it in the CD player, and we made it through, I don't know, the first 2 songs, and I was like, this doesn't sound right. And I took the CD out, and I looked at it to make sure it was the right CD, and I put it back in, and that's about as far as I got. Even the songs that had metal in them, I still don't think were the greatest because the lyrics were fucking stupid.
A
Blades
big
of Ball.
reason.
Blades
Yeah.
of Ball is a Dealer
Blades-
Bale or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the least shitty song on here, not saying it's good, wasn't even written by Vincent Razagoff. It was written by Destructor. Like, he had a spare Zyklon song in his back pocket. Like, here, this will make the album suck slightly less.
Beauty Meets Beast is hilariously bad.
Yeah.
The Oz, the never-ending Oz, Destructos
Oh,
is
God.
laughably bad.
Dude, I mean,
Desuctos.
yeah. Desuctos.
Yeah.
I mean, this record should have been called Dave Vincent's Anus because it
was
really.
bad.
And look, Tim
Oh,
Tim
man.
Young is a hell of a drummer. In fact, when we saw Morbid Angel at Summer Slaughter 2015,
2014.
Yeah, 2014. I met Tim Young. He shook my hand and about broke
crushed
it.
it. Yeah, dude,
Yeah,
he's
he's a
stocky
just
little dude.
tiny little brick shit house, but he's a hell of a drummer. And why would you hire a hell of a drummer
To be on 3/4
to
of
be
an
on
album.
3/4 of an album? And I just
Yeah, the rest of this is just, drum loops and shit. It's
Have we talked about how bad Too Extreme is? Because that's
really-
You're not extreme enough, brother.
Oh, dude.
that's how do you
All right, this album is legendary in its
For
awfulness.
being bad.
Like, and I mean, you guys probably
missed the
knew
mark
this
on
was
every
coming.
level.
like
Yeah.
so I threw it away and then I got it back in a Season of Mist mystery box, and I'm
They
pretty
couldn't
sure.
wait to give that
I'm pretty
away.
sure everybody at
Oh.
Season of Mist laughed when they put it in the
Oh,
box.
dude, they couldn't wait. They're like, get them out. The sooner we pass them out, the fucking sooner we're not having them in our warehouse.
So the first time I've ever listened to this album all the way through was for this ranking.
Same, I never made it past Radical before.
And even then, I found myself fast forwarding through a couple things. I was like, I know for a fact it doesn't get any better.
Like, this album is so shockingly bad. Like, I just
I
can't
listened
even
to the
picture.
whole thing again. I want you all to know that.
Wow, suffer.
I
That's
did.
Ugh.
I did.
elegantly.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing at some points. Like, I literally was laughing out loud at the
Oh,
audacity
yeah.
of what was being put in my ears.
And I just can't believe, like, they were sitting in the studio listening to everything, and they're like, this is pretty awesome, right? I was like, yeah, sure.
Maybe.
I think Trey Azergoth just got drunk.
Like, sure, Dave.
I think he just got drunk and he was like, fucking whatever.
Like, Hardcore Radical, you got it.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
just, bang, okay.
Bing bang.
This album should have never happened. It's a hate crime against music, and don't listen to it.
It's
But
bad.
if you are a fan of it, I want to know what you find redeemable about this album, because I don't get it. But
Yeah, please let us know. I
think there might be
really do.
fans.
I want to
don't
have
know.
I want to have an actual debate about why somebody thinks this record is good because.
Michael Ockerfeld liked it. It's really good. I think it's very interesting. I live hardcore radicals now.
because of my hat.
I hate you both.
Shredlord is crying now because he doesn't feel radical.
I never felt it, Michael. The way I feel about you.
Oh. So, last but not least, and thankfully this album was released, Kingdom's Disdained, which came out in 2017. I had this at number 7. I think this was the saving grace for Morbid Angel. So Steve Tucker comes back to the band. Pete Sandoval leaves for good in 2013, although he's got Terrorizer, so he's fine. Tim Young and Dave Vincent leave the band, and then drummer Scott Fuller is added to the fold. He does a real good job. Seen him twice now live.
Played in Abysmal Dawn, Havoc, currently in Annihilated, I believe, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he's got a good pedigree.
Destructor leaves as well. And then they bring in Dan Vandam Vaughn as their second guitarist. I'm just glad that this record was made the way it was made. It brought back the sound of Morbid Angel to Morbid Angel, which you needed after a dumpster fire.
Yes. This extinguished it. This is my number 7 as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The fact that I heard Warfather before this kind of affects that because Warfather's second album, not so much the first one, but their second album is very good. And that's something that Steve Tucker also fronts. This sounded, again, like Morbid Angel, but here's the problem is when you sink so low, like down to the abyss of shitty albums and then rank among the worst of them.
The name was on the line.
All you have to do is put out a decent album, you kind of saved your brand. And that's all this really is. It's a decent album. It's not like the greatest thing out there, but it was enough to pretty much at least get Morbid Angel fans some hope.
Hope. Yep. Or win them back.
It's a placeholder.
Yeah, exactly. It's a placeholder. It's also my number 7. There was nothing about this album that was really bad per se, but there was nothing about this album that really stood out or was that great to me.
Porno Master, full of
very
idols.
straightforward, very meat and potatoes, very to the point. It wasn't as thoughtful and it wasn't as creative as some of the other Morbid Angel albums, for sure.
I mean, I like songs like Garden of Disdain, Architect and Ironclast, I think is a real good banger. Paradigms Warped has this awesome chug, stomp feel to it. It's meat and potatoes. I think Steve Tucker played it safe. Coming back.
They had
I don't think it was necessarily Steve too. I think it was, also Trey. Trey does the bulk of the writing, and I think they were looking for that re-establishing of the brand because man did they
because they had to.
They had a big PR no.
And honestly, like this does get me excited for future releases. Like I know at least they've retained their sound, but I'm just kind of curious what they're going to do next because generally Morbid Angel doesn't release the same album twice, like back-to-back stylistically. They generally change stuff.
Like if you've seen them live, though, in the last couple of years, too, Steve Tucker took it back to the early, a lot of the early stuff from Morbid Angel. You get a lot out of Altars of Madness and Blessed Are the Sick. And
I think that's where they need to stay.
Formulas. Yeah.
They're so good in that.
They're so good in that vein.
They're so good at doing that. That's where they need to stay, man.
I mean, with these waves of new bands coming out that definitely worship Morbid Angel. In fact, I will go ahead and say the most referenced death metal band on this channel is probably Morbid Angel because there's so many bands that really just take on that style, the atmosphere, the tremolo.
Especially now,
melodies,
there's a lot of that coming out in metal lately.
Tons. I think getting back to that style that they had in those early years is probably what we're going to hear if I was going to predict something.
Well, and if you've been in the game this long, you want to show these new cats who's still God.
Yeah. So, this is pretty much going to close off Morbid Angel. Hopefully not their career entirely, because I want to hear more from them.
Please.
But we're going to move on to our next ranking here soon, which will be Sir Shred's pick, the mighty Black Sabbath. And believe me, that's going to take a little while to get through all 19 albums.
It's going to be fucking awesome. I am excited as shit.
I'm excited.
I'm excited, but at the same time, all right, we just ranked a really good band, and that was really difficult.
We're
19
ranking
albums.
A legendary band.
We're ranking a legendary band and 19 albums and
pick up your scrote.
I can only hope that my job goes back to
it's gonna take
not doing much work again because
on a musical journey of greatness.
And probably after that we'll do another poll throwing out a couple more bands that we'd like to see if you want us to do a discography ranking of. I definitely have some that I would love to go through. I'm sure these
Me
two
too.
gentlemen do too.
Me too.
And we'll probably be bringing in some new people here soon. So
Oh
stay
yeah,
tuned
dude,
for that.
we got a couple new Thrallers in on the mix. So, and all
You'll
of
probably
them,
see one before you see this video,
Yep.
actually. So.
all of them have been dear friends of mine for many, many years.
So if you like what you saw here, please hit the like and subscribe button and hit that little bell at the bottom so every time we put up something, which is pretty regularly, you go ahead and get the notification. That way it keeps you up to date on all your Thralls of Metal notifications. So, take care out there in Metal World. Let us know what you think about our rankings. Please give your personal rankings, because I always like reading them myself, just to see how right I am compared to the rest of these guys. And kick ass. Catch you later.